You're constantly accelerating with certifications, continuing education, and striving for excellence. More achievements actually reinforce the pattern by strengthening the belief that worth comes from external validation. This is exactly what pathological imposter syndrome does to high achievers like you, while simultaneously applying the brakes with self-doubt, perfectionism, and fear of being found out. I'm Dr. Irene Kopp with dual doctorates in both Eastern and Western medicine spanning over 30 years. You see, for years, I didn't believe that I was enough as I was. So the fear of being found out triggers the same stress and survival response as physical danger. This phenomenon affects some of the world's most accomplished people. That's when I finally understood this was not about rational thinking in the slightest. It was a neurobiological pattern that no amount of achievement could satisfy. Pathological impostor syndrome, the high achiever's Achilles heel. Have you noticed something strange? That the more accomplished someone is, the more they actually feel like a fraud? It's one of the most perplexing paradoxes in psychology, that the higher the achiever, the more they doubt their own worthiness. This phenomenon affects some of the world's most accomplished people. Maya Angelou, for instance, wrote so many books and said, I've written 11 books, but each time I think, they're going to find out now just what a big fraud I am. And it even happens with health professionals. This particularly destructive form is what I call pathological impostor syndrome. Pathological impostor syndrome goes far beyond occasional self-doubt or feeling incompetent because you've started something new. This is a persistent, pervasive feeling that you are inadequate, deficient, because you must be perfect in order to just be enough. You see, while many people experience moments of feeling incompetent, what is normally considered normal imposter syndrome, the pathological version becomes a lens through which high achievers view their entire identity. For health professionals, this creates a uniquely painful burden. When you help others heal but struggle personally, the voice inside says, what kind of healer am I if I can't heal myself? You may feel the constant need for more certifications despite having an already extensive education. Or you may discount positive feedback from patients or colleagues. You may experience an exhausting perfectionism in every aspect of practice and life. You may even avoid becoming more visible. You may avoid opportunities despite your amazing expertise. You may feel like a hypocrite when giving advice that you yourself struggle to follow. And then comes the shame spiral. Shame about having these feelings, then shame about the shame, creating a destructive cycle that remains hidden because it's too vulnerable to discuss. This silent struggle is particularly acute in healthcare, where appearing confident and competent is part of your professional identity. The cost isn't just emotional. It manifests in practice plateaus, relationship strain, and physical health consequences as your nervous system remains chronically activated. And how do I know? True confession time. There's a reason I have 2 doctoral degrees, and it's not just a love of learning. You see, for years, I didn't believe that I was enough as I was. And even after earning my medical degree, the inner critic, the voice in my head said, oh, but it's not an Ivy League degree. And when I achieved success in practice, it said, oh, but you haven't written a book. And when I wrote the book, it said, oh, but it's not a New York Times bestseller yet. And finally, One day it hit me as I said to someone else, well, my medical degree isn't good enough because it's not an Ivy League degree. And as I spoke out those words, the realization hit me. I'm Canadian. Why would I even go to any American school when I'm Canadian, let alone an Ivy League school? That's when I finally understood this was not about rational thinking in the slightest. It was a neurobiological pattern that no amount of achievement could satisfy. And I'm not alone. I worked with a beautiful and brilliant wellness expert named Laurie, who described the feeling like she was wearing heavy steel-toed boots, walking through wet concrete every time she tried to elevate her business. She said to me, the higher I tried to go, the more concrete got stuck to my boots and was dragging me down. And at the root of it, I now realize I had to be perfect just in order to feel like I was enough. What nobody else knew was that Laurie spent hours over preparing for basic presentations, second-guessing expert advice she had given thousands of times, and turning down opportunities that would have expanded her impact even more. However, after addressing the neurobiological patterns driving her pathological impostor syndrome, Laurie not only expanded her practice astronomically, but she discovered a joy and ease in her work that she hadn't known since the beginning of her career. How does it feel like, if you're not sure? Imagine driving a Bugatti, one of the world's fastest cars, on a long open road in Montana. Conditions are perfect for maximum performance. But there's a problem. While your right foot is pressed hard on the gas pedal, wanting to go as far and fast as possible, your left foot is riding the brakes. What happens? One of two things. Either you don't go as far or fast as you could, or you wear out the engine much faster than necessary. This is exactly what pathological imposter syndrome does to high achievers like you. You're constantly accelerating with certifications, continuing education, and striving for excellence, while simultaneously applying the brakes with self-doubt, perfectionism, and fear of being found out. This isn't just psychological, it's neurobiological. Your brain is literally working against itself, creating conflicting signals that exhaust your system. Positive affirmations alone can't resolve this because they address conscious thinking, not subconscious patterning. More achievements actually reinforce the pattern by strengthening the belief that worth comes from external validation. And traditional therapy often misses the neurobiological component, focusing on cognitive understanding without neurophysiological change. The first step is understanding that this isn't a character flaw or weakness. It's a neurobiological pattern that affects nearly every high achiever I've ever worked with, especially in healthcare. This pattern develops as a protective mechanism. If you believe you're never quite good enough, you'll keep striving and theoretically stay safe from criticism or failure. And your brain doesn't distinguish between actual threats and perceived threats. So the fear of being found out triggers the same stress and survival response as physical danger. This pattern operates primarily at the subconscious level, which is why conscious knowledge about imposter syndrome rarely changes the experience of it. So, what you need to do is first recognize the physiological sensations that accompany your imposter thoughts. Understand the difference between healthy striving and perfectionism. and learn techniques to regulate your brain and nervous system when these patterns trigger. Again, imagine what would be possible if you removed your foot from the brake, still driving with an intention and care, but allowing your natural talents and training to propel you forward without constant resistance. I invite you to consider, how might your practice and life change if you weren't constantly fighting this internal battle? What energy would be freed up? What opportunities might you embrace? Addressing pathological imposter syndrome isn't just about feeling better. It's about unlocking your full potential and impact as a healer. This is a crucial component of what I call the neurobiology of success. Understanding how your brain's operating system can either sabotage or support your highest aspirations. You've invested years in developing your clinical expertise. Now imagine what becomes possible when you upgrade the operating system that determines just how effectively you can use that expertise. The path to becoming the leader you've always known you could be isn't about more credentials or harder work. It's about upgrading your neurobiology with your vision. And when you do that, everything is possible. Remember, it doesn't have to be so hard.